Welcome to In Depth with Academia. I'm Richard Price, founder and CEO of Academia EDU, and today we're going to take a look at a really fascinating detailed paper by Jake Weaver all about Charles Darwin. And before we start, I'm just here to present Weaver's research as neutrally as I can, not to endorse it. This is about, digging into academic work and thinking for ourselves. No easy answers, right? So today's episode is called Charles Darwin, a Factual Reassessment. I mean, Darwin's a name we all know. Father of evolution, super influential on how we see biology and nature and really ourselves. But how much do we know about the man, aside from his theory? And how do his personal choices line up with what he argued in his own work? That's the core question at the heart of this paper. Jake Weaver takes us way beyond the usual textbook biography to ask, how did Darwin's private life and public ideas collide? There's this pretty striking fact, actually. Darwin married his own first cousin, Emma Wedgwood, in 1839. They had 10 kids together, and here's where things get heavy. 3 of their children died young, and a couple others suffered chronic illnesses, neurological or cardiac stuff, as described in family records. So here's this, scientist famously writing about the risks of inbreeding in animals, calling out degeneracy, feebleness, sterility from close interbreeding. Yet he doesn't hesitate personally to marry his cousin. Kind of wild, right? But why does this matter, really? Well, the paper's main point is that Darwin was fully aware of the scientific dangers of consanguinity, as he published in The Variation of Animals and Plants Under Domestication. He cited livestock experiments and warned against interbreeding, but when it came to his own choices, there was no public admission, no hesitation recorded, just a continuation of family life as if those scientific warnings didn't quite apply to him. So what's the significance for us as listeners, as readers? Weaver argues it's about the tension between evidence and emotion, how even the most evidence-driven minds sometimes reframe the facts when those facts hit close to home. And wow, who hasn't done that a bit in their own lives? Again, no endorsement or condemnation, just a look at the way personal reality and professional insight get messy. Let me walk you through some specific findings. According to Weaver, Darwin kept a meticulous ledger, births, deaths, chronic illnesses of his children, all tracked almost like, a breeding experiment. He wrote guilty, emotional letters to his wife Emma and to colleagues, expressing regret and wondering if their close blood ties were to blame after the deaths of their children. And yet, here's the paradox, he never published anything linking this heartbreak to the risks he'd publicized in animals. The paper paints this pattern. Darwin observing negative outcomes, feeling guilt, but then redirecting his feelings into scientific detachment and calling the outcome natural. No public retraction, no apology, just data, It's a bit chilling, but also maybe a reminder that scientists are just as human, just as conflicted as anyone else. One tangent here, I remember reading somewhere, maybe not even related, that a lot of 19th century scientists kept these intense personal diaries. They'd record everything, the weather, their kids' coughs, failed experiments, what they had for dinner. Why did they do that? Was it just habit or like an early form of data science? Anyway, just thought of that. Let's get back to Weaver's argument. Jake Weaver's whole point isn't to paint Darwin as a villain. He's careful not to judge, and so am I. The documentation here is factual, pulled from Darwin's own letters and diaries. Weaver wants us to consider how scientific ideas can act as shields, ways of explaining away what we might otherwise feel responsible for. Darwin built a theory about natural selection that, as Weaver shows, kind of compartmentalized human suffering, stripped away notions of personal responsibility, at least in public. Now, what does this mean for you listening? Well, I think it's a nudge to see academic research as a conversation, not gospel. We're always making sense of incomplete records, wrestling with complexity, and, sometimes finding the messiest contradictions in even our biggest heroes. Academia isn't about comfort or politeness. It's about following the facts wherever they go and then stepping back to reflect. So, as always, I'm just the messenger here, not the judge. I encourage you to read Jake Weaver's work, go through those primary sources if you're curious, and think about the ways we all rationalize, reframe, and sometimes shield ourselves with ideas. Research isn't the end of the story, it's the start of a conversation. Thanks so much for joining me on In Depth with Academia. I hope today's look at Darwin's personal and scientific contradictions makes you think a little differently about the relationship between what we know and what we do. Until next time, keep questioning, keep digging, and keep your mind open. See you soon.